Or
No, that should be fine.
should be fine. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually live now. So, welcome everybody to day 4 of the SwiftUI series. We're almost through, one more day to go. But that doesn't mean that we're going to relax now, although we haven't been working super hard last week. At least I hope you haven't. Today is a topic that's quite dear to my heart because I got into macOS development last year with SwiftUI. It was one of those things that I never really thought I could do, and then I decided, all right, let me just try to make something simple. And actually, the first macOS app I made was Bakery, which is an app that's actually useful for making like icons. If I look back at it now, there's a lot that can be improved, but it was something I made in a day, and it's helped a lot of people. So apparently, you can make functional apps even with like very little macOS experience. So I've got two really good judges today as well. One of them is actually also a really good instructor that I used some of her resources when I was trying to learn macOS development for SwiftUI. And that's Sarah. Hey, Sarah. Nice to have you.
Hi, everybody.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know you?
Sure. Well, I'm the crazy Mac lady. I'm the one that insists on writing Mac apps, even though everybody else likes to write iOS apps. I think the Mac is a fantastic platform. It's the most powerful thing Apple makes. It's the most open system Apple makes, and I think I just get the most fun out of working in front of my Mac and making apps for my Mac. And I recently published a book through Ray Wenderlich, macOS by Tutorials, which is specifically designed for people who've only made iOS apps to try and get into the macOS programming system.
Yeah, highly recommend it, and I'll share a link to that afterwards on our Twitter as well, or on our Twitter, on the SwiftUI Twitter. So super happy to have you, Sarah. Thanks a lot.
Thank
And
you.
and where are you right now? You're in Australia, right?
I'm in Australia. I'm in Queensland, Australia, where it is now 7 p.m.
Yes. So we're
on Thursday
spanning all
evening.
the time zones. So I'm in Amsterdam, and Sarah is in Australia, and then in the middle we've got Mufasa,
Mustafa's
Mustafa.
in the
Um, you go by both names. I always tend to go to Mufasa because that's in your Twitter handle, and for me that's kind of how my mind works.
Yeah,
But hey, good to have you as well.
likewise. Glad to be here.
So I think a lot of people in the iOS community, especially the iOS indie dev community, know you from an app called Tasks. But you're obviously more than just that app. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Mustafa. I'm from India. I've been coding apps since the day Swift launched, and I've worked odd jobs in between, two jobs after college, and then after that, I always knew I wanted to build an app for myself because in college I made an app which people, I scraped data from our college's website, and people saw that natively in their app, so they could see how many classes they can miss, in order to make that cutoff for their examinations and all that stuff. So I made that. People in college loved it, and since then I knew I just want to make apps. And I worked two jobs before that so that I could learn the tricks of the trade. And I made an app Lingo before, but that didn't turn out a success. So building on top of that failure, I did a lot of things right, and then I launched Tasks. It's the most generic name, so like it. It was something that didn't work in my favor, and then later worked in my favor because you search tasks on the app, so you won't find me. You'll find every other task app but me. But over time, it just built out in such a way that tasks is more explorable, like in terms of AS ranking. And yeah, I am now a full-time indie developer, and I just keep coding and sharing a few tips and tricks online.
Nice. And you were actually just mentioning that you try to like use SwiftUI as much as you can on your new projects, and you were saying, yeah, maybe this little discussion that we were having off stream. Um, can you tell a little bit about your approach there for the both of you when you make macOS apps, and why you go with SwiftUI there?
Awesome. Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. Honestly, I can't imagine starting an app now that doesn't begin in SwiftUI. I know that there's missing bits, and you have to drop back into AppKit, just like you have to drop back into UIKit for some iOS apps. But being able to create the main part of your interface in SwiftUI is just so good and so adorable. I love the data part, the reactive data display, so your data is your display. That removes so much code. I mean, have you ever tried to make a table in a macOS app, in an AppKit app?
I have
It
not.
requires code going down and down and down and down. And in a SwiftUI macOS app, it's like 2 lines. Honestly, it's just I think SwiftUI is just brilliant, magical, exactly magical.
What about
So
you, Mustafa?
I come from another end of this work. So I started SwiftUI the day SwiftUI launched. I was already building apps and prototypes in SwiftUI because fortunately I was there at WWDC. So I think everyone was so excited. I got excited and I started coding on it the next day. I love SwiftUI, but then I also hate SwiftUI. It's like an equally balanced relationship. Like there's parts which I just admire, like, oh my god, this is so simple, and I just couldn't sit down to do this in UIKit. I've never been an AppKit developer, but I've delved into AppKit as I'm building tasks for the Mac. So the thing about SwiftUI, I love, like as Sarah pointed out, right? The binding of the data and the UI is just magical. Imagine doing that in UIKit, it would have been a pain, and it still is a pain, right? And I started out going into the Mac world. Like I would have never built Mac apps. Like as a kid, I never thought, okay, Mac is the platform I'm going to build apps for, because I found that slightly complex and everything. But as soon as Catalyst came around, right, that became that thing that I thought would be impossible for me to delve into or like to justify, became just a checkbox, as Apple calls it, right? But not really the checkbox it is. But so that was the first step. Then I went into Catalyst, but then I realized that using SwiftUI as the Mac target alone, right, is very good. Having it cross-platform has its perks and downsides. But now that I get more and more into this, building a SwiftUI Mac app is something that I see me doing for the next few months for tasks, and not having it work one code base for both, and one target for both the apps. So I'm going down that path, and I think it's going to be beneficial. And even if I suffer a little later, I know that down the years I will reap the benefits of that early seed.
Yeah, and I think it's only, of course, there's stuff that's not working as we might have wanted right now, but it's only a matter of time, I think, for most use cases, and especially because you can still dip down to AppKit if you want to. Yeah, it's such a good way to get
Hopefully, the
started.
matter of time is just 2 weeks.
Yes, hopefully 11 days. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not expecting them to fix everything in this next update. But
Absolutely, yeah.
so let's have a look at some of the entries. So we got a few more entries in the last 24 hours, which is really nice. And what I found most surprising, that some people actually made like fully functioning apps, also in this small time span. So we're just going to go through them, and we had some issues with getting all of them to run because some were doing some funky stuff with playgrounds or yeah. So we're just gonna try and see how far we get. So the first one is by Sabolch I think Sabolch. Please let us know how you pronounce your name if you're watching in the chat or afterwards. And it's an app called Ansen, and it's a small encryption decryption utility. So it's like super simple, but it's like the very clear example of just a utility app that you might want to have as a person, as a developer, as maybe you're in a certain company with a certain workflow. And that's, I think, where macOS apps can really shine, when they can make this process that you have to do manually a lot simpler. And in this case, obviously, you can really encrypt stuff manually by hand with other tools. But yeah, it's basically you drop a file in there and it encrypts it, and then you can decrypt it afterwards. So while I run it, maybe Sarah and Mufasa, you can have a. Did you have a chance to look at it already?
I did.
Yeah.
And I thought, like you say, it's a really good it provides really good functionality. And I like the way that the author gave credit where it needed in the README. That was good. What I didn't like was, like any good Mac user, I just ran the app and then I couldn't work out how to use it. I dragged a file in and nothing, and I entered my code and my passcode, and nothing seemed to happen. Oh, that's something I meant to say, Geordie, just while you're getting this app to run. people, if you're uploading an app for people, for anybody to use, set the team to none and set the sign to run locally, and then anybody can use it much more easily.
Let me show that. Like this, right?
None and sign to run
so
locally.
Team to none and signing certificate to sign to run locally, and then there's no problem.
Yeah.
So my big problem with this app was not what it did, but the fact that it didn't tell me what it did. So I dropped a file in, typed in my code, and I saw nothing. I got no dialogue. I got no offer to show me that encrypted file in Finder. I got nothing. I thought it hadn't worked. And so that's my main issue with this app. I would also like, and this is perhaps a common Mac theme, I would like to see all Mac apps with more menus, more keyboard shortcuts, so people can use them more with the keyboard. And for this app, you can drag and drop a file in, but you can't click to select a file or can't go Command O to open a file, and that's something that I would really like to see.
Yes.
But
and
I thought
Apple
it was
does make it simple. I think you have a file importer. It's just straight up. You just do .file importer and you can import things. There's just a few things like people forget in the entitlement file. You have to just add a few entitlements in order for you to go ahead and do that. Otherwise, the system doesn't let you access these files. But other than that,
I'm a bit old school. I tend to use NS Open Panel.
Okay, that's the more accurate Mac way to go about it. But as Sarah said, right, first thing my instinct would be is to click the plus button.
Yeah.
But the plus button doesn't do anything. So that was one thing that was a downside. And a small subtitle wouldn't help, probably a drag
Exactly,
icon.
yes, a little bit of help. I thought the project itself was very nicely laid out. You see all those groups there, so it's very easy to find the different files in the project. I thought that was great. There was a very nice app icon, and it definitely, of course, runs in a Mac with no problem. I didn't have any crashing or anything. I just wasn't sure what to do. And so Geordie's fixing it now, and that would solve the whole thing, really.
Pretty much.
Some of these small details, and obviously we didn't expect people to make like a fully functioning app, and I think the author of this one probably just wanted to focus on the functionality here. But it
helps as judges. Like if you want someone to judge a POC, at least the POC should be somewhat walkable.
Self-explanatory. Yeah,
exactly that.
Yeah. So I actually have a little photo here that we can drag in to see what happens. It's interesting that they have the drop target here exactly like on the button. You would maybe expect it to be everywhere, but I guess it works. And then please set a password for your encrypted file. Your password cannot be empty, so we will do Swift.
1, 2, 3, 4. No.
And now, because I have my Finder directory open, I can see that now there's an encrypted file as well. So obviously I don't know how to open this otherwise. So maybe if I just remove this, maybe it'll just work. But
so I think because you're on
not.
light mode, the text in the text view shows. But if you're in dark mode, I don't think it, you pretty much see it doesn't. Like if you set it to dark mode, the text field, you just get a white text field with no cursor showing.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, that.
No, it seems to be showing, right?
I think that's working okay.
The placeholder and the cursor don't show.
Is there a placeholder text here normally?
Placeholder, the text, and the cursor.
Let's see.
I think it's just
yeah, you're right. Yeah. So.
Yes, you're right. Yes. So you need to use primary and secondary instead of setting an actual color, and then that'll allow for any color scheme change.
So
does the text automatically get the first responder, or?
Let's have a look.
You have to tap, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's try to I guess I would just put it in here to decrypt it. Yes, let's see if this works.
You might want to change the name of the original, otherwise it's just going to overwrite it.
Ah, good one. Yes.
That was what's happening with me. So I didn't understand if it was decrypting it or not.
And yes, we have it back.
Okay. So functionally, it's really good. It's whoa.
So
Okay.
if I try to put in the wrong password, I get this error. So I like that there's a custom
right.
error message for her.
That's a very old school Mac bomb there.
Yeah.
It's marks for history there.
Yeah, it would obviously be nice if the error was a bit more descriptive of what was going on.
Less programmatic mode, yeah.
Yeah.
He's used a custom error alert there instead of using the standard alert. I'm a big fan of using the standard alerts because then when Apple changes the operating system, the alerts change with them.
Yeah.
But you know, you can always make a case for your own custom one.
Yeah, but, especially if you want to make it more like feel more in the style of your app. If you're doing something where you want, so I guess here with the bomb, you could see this trend going where you have the style going where you make it more playful or something. Compared to just the native elements, but maybe we can dive a little bit into how it actually works below under the hood. So like very simple. There's just a drop zone image view, which is basically this image that we have here for this square or for this plus sign. Yeah.
It's got a really nice waveform.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna...
Getting SwiftUI to accept a drop is very easy, but working out what's been dropped is not easy, and he's done that very well.
Yeah, so that's going on here, right? Maybe you can talk a little bit about how they approached it.
So basically, the drop uses a custom custom clipboard, and the clipboard contains, well, what you've said you can accept. But then you've got to get a URL out of that clipboard if you've accepted a file, and I think he does that in the convert URL to file path function or method on Ansen settings. But it can be a bit tricky there. This is okay. So he's allowing for both the encrypt and the decrypt. A bit of code duplication there, but. Now, file path, is that a custom?
No, he's just manually checking if it's .encrypt towards the end.
Yeah.
And then checking to do will encrypt or
so
not.
What does will encrypt do? Going on.
I guess that's being used later. So obviously this then shows the dialog sheet, and I think that then listens to the Ansen settings to determine, hey, should I now be encrypting or decrypting based on the URL? So I guess if you would put the word encrypt in any other file, it would also think, hey, it needs to be decrypted based on that. But I guess for
just based on the file extension.
Yeah, it's maybe not the most solid approach if you want to really release this, but for showing this off, it's like a really simple way to get this done. So there's basically a sheet that gets presented if showing dialog is true, and then it shows that sheet where you can actually fill in the stuff.
Overall, the key code is written very well. The commands are like, it's very neat code to look at, and the
it's neat, and none of the files are too long.
No, yeah, they're all I think under 100 lines of code or something. So for example, the text field view that's where we here. So foreground color is mountain fig, which is just this random color that doesn't really show maybe on certain backgrounds. So it's a bit tricky to do this if you also want to support light and dark mode. But what you can do is actually put the colors in here.
Yeah, you create a color. Yeah.
So here you would see if I can see it underneath my camera. So you would basically make a custom color, and then you can say, okay, I want a light and a dark color, and here you can basically say, all right, in light mode it looks like this, and in dark mode it looks like this, and then you can still have your custom colors, but have more control over it there. Yeah,
it's such a good way of using colors instead of setting an RGB. You can set as you say, the ones that work in light mode and dark mode.
Yeah. And also thing to note is that if you want to do like
Just
the
a color
P3
name.
color scheme, you also have to be aware that if you, for example, create a color from a hex value, that you don't get the P3 color space and everything, which can come back to bite you afterwards as well.
Yeah, actually, I see he did use the RGB. I would recommend using what you just made, a color set in assets instead, because then you can set the differences for dark and light.
Yeah, so it would then be something like this, right? Or is it named? I'm not really sure what the color...
Named, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know if
exactly.
it's not working. And then you would just have that color set up here in your something like that.
Yep.
So, but before we break the entire thing, let me just revert some stuff. Yeah, and so where's the actual codes to do the decryption and the encryption? That's going on here.
There's a lot of nice touches, like the buttons becoming disabled or enabled, and the buttons having different colors depending on whether your password's long enough and not. It's neatly put together.
That's probably going on here then, right? Yeah. Yeah, so based on that will encrypt state, it will actually say if it's encrypting or decrypting. And then the encrypt file function, I guess this is...
So it's a global function, I think.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can go into how encryption and decryption works, but I guess we'll just have to trust this is a very secure way of encrypting.
Well, it looks like the author took this from an Apple piece of code, so we'll just have to trust that one.
Credit over there as well. Yeah.
And he gave it credit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think overall it really shows a good example of just making something small that you want to use on your Mac, and how easy it is to make that like work well from a UI point of view.
He has an environment object Ansen settings. He's passing it as is he using this environment object anywhere?
That I think is the one that actually works out whether you're decrypting. Is the one that shows up the...
Yeah. So it's the file path saved there, the source.
Just the file path stuff, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's some improvements could be made to UI, like we were mentioning before. But other than that, it's a functional app. It shows you, okay, I want to make an app that helps me encrypt and decrypt. Yeah. And obviously there can be improvements there.
But it has a lot of neat finishing touches already in it, so it's an app to be proud of. Keep going.
It's so close to shipping. Like honestly, this is a very shippable app. Like it's so close to shipping. Just a few things allow you to figure out where it's been saved, choose where you want to decrypt the file, not defaulting the location. Small minimum touches, and it's a neat.
Showing you what you've done, showing you the file when it's been decrypted or encrypted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could also see it that you actually when you drag. Let me open it again. Like when you drag the file in, I would just want to have another like icon here next to it, which is my encrypted file, and I can just drag it out and just immediately drag it into iMessage, for example. Because I could see this single file
or just
thing.
Show in Finder as well, right? So you just show in Finder and then
yeah. Well, I guess with the current thing, like you always have to drag it from Finder, so you will always see the folder already where it's going on. But yeah, I guess it's just now we're just figuring out how to.
Oh, we'll have an action extension and everything.
Yes, maybe an iMessage app. Is that also a thing on macOS? Just have it directly in.
Is that still a thing on iOS? That's must have died the death, really.
All right, so thanks a bunch to, let me see their name. Yeah, Sabolk. I hope I pronounced that a bit correctly. But yeah, that nice one.
Yeah, great job. Very good.
Great job.
So the next one is by Arnoud, and I actually know Arnoud because we've been talking about this thing for a while. So I use this website called countapi.xyz, which is just a very simple API if you want to just increment a number. And I basically built my own internal analytics for my apps based on this. So I just do a +1 every time someone goes somewhere. So it's very private, very lightweight. But I always needed a way to actually like view the results there, sort of an analytics dashboard. So I made a version a few weeks ago, and I was talking to Arnoud about it, and then Arnoud actually went and like made a full app around it. PO contest, like proof of concept contest. There's a little story there behind it as well. Did you have a chance to look at it while I opened the project?
I did, and I thought, wow, this is quite an app to have been put together just in this time. So I think perhaps it's been under development for a bit longer. Like you said, it provides you with these counters, and you make a domain that holds a certain set of counters, and then within that domain you can have sub counters. I really like this opening screen. You have the Go Mingle button, which helps you work out what the hell app's doing, because at this point it's not clear to me. And add domain seems like something that I should be doing on a web server rather than on an app. So I liked the Go Mingle one, which brought me to the sample domain and allowed me to play with that and see one of the things has an error which you can click on to get, and if you unlock one of the counters, you can click on it to increment it, and I have to say my internet connection was not as fast as yours, Geordie, and I could see that the spinner, when you increment, is not quite right. You can see it kind of shifts off to one side just briefly. That's because the spinner is not in the right place. But that's a minor tweak, and I think not everybody realizes that not everybody else has super fast internet. Now there was
network link conditioner.
Yes, the network link conditioner is a good Apple utility for simulating bad internet. Now I like the layout. We've got the sort of classical sidebar and details view. I liked the fact that this app, unlike the previous one, actually has custom menus with keyboard shortcuts, as I'm a big fan of keeping my hands on the keyboard. So if you could show us the menus there, Geordie, we've got the refresh, yes, and I think in the file or in the edit, we've got, we can make new domains and new counters there. So that's really good. Now go up to the menu bar. This app has a menu bar component as well, which took me by surprise.
This one. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Arnett started working on this somewhere last week, so it's not a one-day project, definitely.
Well, it's very impressive, and I'm a big fan of providing menus. I'm a big fan of providing keyboard shortcuts. So that gets good marks from me. I would like to see a preferences window, which SwiftUI makes super easy, and none of the projects that I've really looked at has preferences, which I thought a bit sad. Like in this one, I might not want the menu bar app, or I might want it to be always a menu bar app, and so I'd like that as a setting.
Let's have a look.
But,
yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on.
No, go on.
Somebody else talk.
No, so
I know we enjoy your insights are actually helping me, because I'm going to be building a Mac app soon, so I'm just learning from every single word you say.
Yeah, so
again, it's a really well laid out project. Lots of subgroups. Nothing's too long. It uses core data, which is not a thing I'm super
honestly
familiar
Apple
with.
has made preferences window just so easy. It's just so good. Like
settings instead of preferences, settings. Settings, Jordy.
Go on, Mustafa.
Trying to make that preference window in UIKit is just a nightmare. You just can't do it as well. You can do it in SwiftUI.
Yeah. And there's your tiny little window, because you didn't tell me what to show, but it's there. And now, how easy is that?
Let's see.
Yeah, you might want to give it a frame. Yes.
The first person who's using blue to debug stuff instead of red.
Yeah, it's more. I just wanted
absolutely first person error. Yeah.
So
I've never seen a person default to blue.
So yeah, it's like making a preferences window nowadays is super simple on macOS as well. And there's obviously you can do very custom stuff in the preferences window,
And the
but
group boxes and everything is just, you can just make it so native and it just feels right on the Mac.
yeah.
And a tab group in the preferences window shows differently with the like the settings in Xcode with the icon and the text view. It's really nice.
Yeah, this is probably not going to work, but I'm just going to try and see what it does.
It,
Let's see. Yeah, I don't have any
yeah,
icons
but
now,
you
but
have to
Kind
add a
of, you
tab
can
item, dot tab
You
item.
can see how that would work. Yeah.
Just dot tab item and I mean, it's that simple. They made it so simple. It's you can call this gears. I think gear. I'm just so used to these things.
let's see, trying to get it on
SF
the
symbols are my
camera.
go-to. I mean, imagine life without SF symbols.
Oh.
That would have been really hard. It's called gear. I'm right. Yeah. Right.
And you also have the gear shape and the gear shape fill.
There are a lot of gears. Oh
Let's
my god.
see.
You have to just be mindful of when you're using this on which iOS version or macOS version they're available on, because that's the only thing that you have to be very mindful of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to make a preferences window is super easy, and I was a bit disappointed that none of the entrants did that.
Because I think that's the first step to a macOS app. Like I did that for tasks very late as well, just because I was more in the UI kit / Mac Catalyst work. But as soon as I got a chance, I built my preferences window, and I've been it just feels so good to have a preference window. And there's no standard way of doing it. Every app has a unique preference window. I really like that of Safari and Xcode. Like these are two apps that have a very unique preference window. But
They do,
yeah,
but every app has a preferences window, or almost
Absolutely,
every app has
like,
a preference
it should
with the
just be
same
a-
keyboard shortcut, and so people expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Command.
Like command comma is my go-to key if I'm
Yep.
stuck in an app.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like you mentioned before with core data. I think it's like a really I think this app, if with just a few more days, could just be something that actually gets launched. I would already use it now compared to my current app that does the same thing but in a less clean way, I guess. And Arnaud actually had a few questions or things that he known issues that he was struggling with. And I don't think we can go into these two because they're quite related to the rep. But he was trying to find a good way to manage like different windows and tabs. And Sarah, maybe you have like some small suggestions there in general.
Again, in SwiftUI, you use the app storage property wrapper to save things to user defaults. Now, this app's using core data, so I don't know if it's using app storage, but the equivalent, if you want per window storage, is at scene storage. And that allows you to have a setting that is specific to that particular window. It's stored internally, like when you move a window or resize a window, and then when you restart the app, it knows where those windows are. Well, again, scene storage does effectively that, and restores the user default settings in each window as the app reopens. So that'd be how I would do that.
Yeah.
But if the data is core data and he's restoring it on boot, I'm not sure how you would do that.
Yeah, and also just a very simple one, right? How to have clear backgrounds for text fields. That's one of the things.
Text fields you can, text view you can't. Text editor.
I'm trying to see now.
I like to use the text field style rounded text field style or something. That's the one I like to style
and
my
when you
text
do that,
fields
I
with.
believe you can clear the background. But for a text editor, there's no way to clear the background unless you go UI text field or NS text field or appearance.
Yeah.
You clear the background.
I actually noticed that in iMessage, if you make a group, let me see if I can quickly show this without. Then you also see that they also have a funky little text field going on here.
That's rounded, right? No.
Yeah. You know why that is? That's because they're using Catalyst.
Yeah, so and that's one of those things where like having a text field that you can't fully control is like a really simple thing that makes your app feel like something's not quite right. So I really hope that in the next releases they give us some more control over those things. so you can actually make
Yeah.
make it fit in with the system. But
And especially the big text field's pretty good, but especially text editor and that
Or
yeah,
text
that's
editor,
the
I feel
long
is so
form one. Yeah.
obsolete. I feel like text editor has to become more useful. First, like there are a lot of things I have problems with text editor, and there's no way for having a text field which is multi-line with the background clear. So that's one of the big pain points I'm facing.
Okay. The Windows and tabs management is already there. That's just by default on a Mac app. If you run the app, Jordy, and make multiple windows, you'll see you can merge them. You can have tabs. You can show all the tab
You
settings.
can go into Windows, view and show tab bars, I think. View.
oh, sorry.
Just Command N to make a
View
second
and
window
show tab
first.
Show all tabs, show tab bars. And then you can just.
Ooh.
And this, I think, all apps get for free. All
Yep,
Mac apps
absolutely.
get
So
free,
that's already done.
Yeah.
But you can see here where the two windows they're mirroring each other, and that
You
was
just need, because that's same store. It's both accessing. If you switch to another domain, I think they won't mirror each other. But that's the beauty of SwiftUI, right? Like, or that's the beauty of binding the views to the data. You don't have to manually refresh them.
Yeah. So the window and tab management, you've got that one already.
Yeah, but I guess it's more related to that issue that you mentioned before, where how would he
Just the
approach
window
it?
type, like the tab titles need to, like the tabs have to have their own titles, so it would essentially be the namespace that's selected. Just that's the few things that is on us. We don't get that for free, but it's very simple.
You set the navigation title, and that works
exactly
for that one.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So yeah, I think just really well done, Arnaud. Obviously, room for improvement, but you saw those things before as well. But I think it's a really good foundation, and especially also with like all these little things. I could see myself using this already in a few days from now as my main app for this particular use case. So yeah, I really hope he's actually gonna like release this from what I heard. So I am looking forward to that.
Excellent.
Yeah. Visual Blow on the Mac app or Mac menu bar, and it's as native as it can be. The only thing I think that was having a solid background on the Mac menu bar.
It's quite difficult though, because if you for example, an app like this, like with the default Mac menu bar style, right? This works for like these types of things. But if you want to show more custom stuff, for example, this is my VPN app. Like you want to go a bit custom there, because it's very hard to replicate everything exactly like it, and otherwise it just becomes a list like this, where you would have maybe the number and
say for example when you click the AirPods icon, or even
you're right.
The thing is, in SwiftUI, even if you make that a standard NS menu, you can use SwiftUI to make the view inside each menu item.
True, but from what I at least experienced is that it's very hard to make it feel very similar to Apple's native style. So I usually go either just use these. Oh, can you still hear me? Because I think my AirPods just ran out.
Yep, can still.
Okay.
You just clicked it by mistake.
Maybe it was because I was in the AirPods menu actually. Let me see. Yeah, the audio seems to still be working. So so I either go for just default ones, or do it completely custom, and then usually just make more of a simple file or a simple view.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely some other ways to do that. So then we have Dion, and I know she's actually in the chat watching. So let's give her some good feedback here. And let me open her app.
Well, I've been talking too much. I know Mustafa has thoughts on this app, so you go, Mustafa.
I think Mustafa has a lot of thoughts.
Okay. So yeah, and I honestly, like, as soon as I opened the app, everything like just felt really Mac-like. I just loved that how it felt like very native, nice Mac app. Everything's super clean, and it's a good utility app. Sometimes I know, so I have this I've organized my iCloud drive folder way too much, and I've nested things way too much, and sometimes it's really good to get all that. So I honestly see myself needing this utility tool. So it's from that standpoint, I relate to it, and overall, like it's just really well thought of. Like I don't think I found any like folder name being given, you have relative paths, not relative paths, recursively iterate. Like functionality wise, if this is done in a day, this is just awesome. Like functionality and visually and design and aesthetics, everything's really spot on. And yeah, it just feels like a good Mac app. I have, again, like I think like a few things that were missing, and I'm yet to dwell right into the code because this was the second last app that I was just going through. But yeah, let's walk through the code with Jordi.
Yeah. So just to summarize what the app does, it basically you select a folder and then it lists all the files and all the folders that are in that folder, also like the subfolders and everything. Um, so it can be useful to figure out, okay, where is this particular file if there's just a lot of stuff going on there. And things I like is that there's like a lot of different options there to make it like work exactly how you want to use this. So obviously it's simple, well, not simple, but you can make an app that just shows this list, but when you actually add these little features and these settings, then you actually think about, okay, how are people going to use this? And are there maybe some small adjustments I can make to make it useful for more people? This is also interesting, post saving quick indexator, but yeah, let's have a look. So clean up some
And it
stuff.
didn't lag. I didn't have any problems on really large files being rendered. SwiftUI normally a lot of data thrown at it. If it's thrown inefficiently, it kind of scroll stutters. But I didn't face that issue.
Yeah, so I saw that Dion's actually in the chat and she didn't know about the file path API that we showed in the first project. So that's also interesting to see how she approached that. So we start with a simple navigation view for the sidebar and the main view. Like, yeah, all this stuff is so simple in SwiftUI. You can just take these basic elements. Is there any particular part you would like me to dive deeper into and to have a look at?
I just had one thing. I really like the settings in the sidebar, but they weren't persistent. So like if I have show hidden items and then I quit the app and launch it again, show hidden items is not checked anymore. And if that was done with app storage property wrappers, that would be persistent. And I think that would be a good benefit.
Let's see how that's done. Oh,
That I think is whether you're choosing whether it's files or folders or whatever.
yeah. And so they're all bound to.
So there's content options. Yeah.
Now we have bindable lists. You can have bindings within, but yeah, she's done binding for options. It's in binding, a set of bindings. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I'd just like those to be persistent. That's all.
Yeah. You can see here they're just published properties here. So what would your approach be to do that? Because if you have them all in an observable object and you have them as a scene storage or an app storage, then they don't automatically get published. So what I would do, and this is probably not the right approach, but oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have them as part of this data controller. I'd have them separately as just app storage. And you can't nest property wrappers like you say. So you can't have add published at app storage or at scene storage, but you can have you can take that setting out and make it an app storage setting instead of making it a published setting in the data controller.
But how would you then?
That's
how would you then like pass it down to all the places that need it?
Well, the thing is that if you just put that app storage declaration in every file that needs it, and it just gets there.
Have you never faced an unreliable, like something that not being reliable at times? Because I've personally faced sometimes where it doesn't reflect immediately at times. I faced that issue, so I have
never had any problem with app storage. I've recently been dealing with people on the forums for my book who say scene storage is not reliable, and it turned out that's a setting in system preferences that you can say don't remember anything from my last app launch. And that's if you have that turned on, scene storage doesn't work. But I've always found app storage to be very reliable.
So
the settings that you're talking about, I had such a tough time figuring it out. Was that like I've just been people wanted tasks, so they basically have tasks a small window on the left hand side. Whenever they quit and relaunch, it just come in the center, and it was annoying. And I finally figured out the fix to have it that way in Catalyst, and then I had to go in and I was at the verge of killing myself, and then I finally found out that it's a simple checkbox that you have to do it within system preferences. Oh my god, thank god I
Yeah.
found that in time.
Yeah, it took me ages to find that. I never remember checking it, but on my Mac it was not checked, and on my MacBook it was. And
Yeah.
where is that setting actually? Where would you find
You
it?
go
if you go
into
to System
system
Preferences
preferences.
General,
Mm-hmm. Mm,
So if you just search
Okay.
close and restore
you've
Windows,
got it
you'll
checked.
find it there.
You see that close Windows? Oh, you were there.
Oh.
You were there. You were there. Down the bottom section, where it says under preferred tabs. Yeah, that close Windows.
Yeah.
That if you've got that checked, and scene storage will not work for if that's checked.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you quit Safari, it won't remember where on what size did it quit. It just started as it just would every other thing.
Yeah, I'm not trying to think if that's what I want actually, but yeah, let me go a week without that and see what it does. There's probably not an easy way for us to figure out
better
that
remember
setting,
that
right?
Anyway,
Yeah.
I had a couple of other thoughts about this app, which I really liked, by the way. It has keyboard shortcuts, so instead of clicking the browse button, you can go Command B, and instead of clicking Save, you can go Command S. But I had to look in the code to find those.
Yeah.
So
they're
I
not
would like to
revealed
see
in
them
the-
as menu items as well, especially the Command S one, which everybody knows and everybody kind of knows where to look for it in the file menu. Yeah, add menus with these commands in them as well.
Yeah, because if you would just have a menu item here, and here it would say something like browse, or here it would say browse, then you could have this little explainer thing. I'm not sure what the name for this is, but
Yeah.
that's
Tooltip,
the
yes.
yeah. So that's the default way to approach that on macOS, I would assume. But maybe also like a hover on the button could also show it.
A tooltip, a .help is the SwiftUI
Oh, yeah.
modifier you want.
Browse for files, and then maybe something like yes. How do you actually? What's the keyboard shortcut for that
there's no
logo?
command symbol. I go to Safari, I copy it, and then I paste it.
Okay, yeah. For now, I'm
The
just gonna
CMD
do an
plus.
X.
Yeah.
So let's see. What did I do wrong?
I'm missing a
I'm
bracket.
not sure it's supposed to be a text. It might just be supposed to be a string.
I think it
Oh, there it
allows
is.
for both.
Yeah.
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 There you go.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing would be neat.
Yeah, so when you're adding these things, also make sure that you explain people that you have those shortcuts. Otherwise, they won't be able to find it.
And if you have a menu item that has them, it also makes it easier to discover them.
Yeah, because a lot of people go to the menu bar to find these kind of shortcuts
Yeah,
as well. So
definitely.
Shortcuts, yeah, for sure.
yeah, but other than that, also I think a very clear example. It's a bit of a mix between the first and the second. Like it's a very small, focused utility, but this one has a bit more UI around it and actually makes it feel like a more complete macOS app. But it's actually something that I could imagine if you put a little bit more work in it and like tweak the design here and there, get some more guidance for how people to use it, and then you could just launch this as an app and people could just use it. And like Dion also said, like you could also do this in the terminal, but a good GUI app makes it a lot more approachable for a lot of people that are not developers or are not as technical as most in our community are. So yeah, really good job, and yeah, some small pieces of improvement I think, but overall good job. And then we're gonna go. So now we're getting into the area of the apps that we were having some trouble launching. So let's see how this goes. So Mustafa, I know that for this one you just sent me another file, right, where you were able to manage it to get it to work. So that's the
The screenshot there looks really cool, by the way.
That's on
with
the
particle
iPad, right?
effects.
Like that's the he's made it for the iPad, and he's just made it use iPad. What's the setting called? Run design for iPad.
Hmm.
Oh, the catalyst setting? No, is it
Yeah,
catalyst
design
app?
for iPad. That's a Catalyst app. I mean,
Oh,
the screenshot at least is because that's how iPad apps ported for Catalyst look like.
Well, we were a bit confused because the GitHub repository didn't include an actual project file, so we couldn't actually run it from the start. But Mustafa you made a project file for it, did you?
Yeah, I just made a project file, replaced it with his files, and it's either one of two. The person either um, had it as a package or something. I'm not really sure what it was, either a playground on the Mac or a playground on the iPad or a package, or it's an
Right.
Xcode file, but they managed to only commit the folder and not the not the
Well,
root folder but the subfolder.
the real problem here is, of course, that we can't access everything in the sidebar. It's not a scroll. It's not contained in a scroll view, so we can't see what's at the top and what's at the bottom.
yeah. So let's try to see if we
And
can.
usually on a Mac app, you'd have this on the right hand side. Like usually you have controls, fine controls, like how you do on the right hand side. So you'd have an edge stack, edge split view. Sorry, you'd have an edge split, and these controls would be on the right hand view, taking inspiration from apps like Sketch, Rotato, etc.
Okay. Now,
Yeah. So obviously there's
now we can actually. It needs a bit of padding,
yeah.
but now we can actually see all the controls.
Yeah. And we can reset stuff. We can. So it's like a really nice app for testing out emitter code that you might want to use in other places as well. So I could definitely see this as sort of similar to Motionscape, which is an app that we used yesterday in the animations live event, where you can actually use this to tweak the emitter that you want to use in your app and tweak the values, and then afterwards maybe copy those values out and then use it in your actual app.
And it's useful to be able to see the frames per second that you're getting depending on your settings. So this uses SpriteKit. Again, it's not a technology that I'm super familiar with, but it's neatly done with all these tweaks and parameters that you can obviously change with it. But it's just wasn't really built for the Mac, was it?
Yeah, you
It
can really
doesn't
see it.
feel right for the Mac. There's just like everything's a huge form. Yeah, having lists would give you the separators. And if you put in an edge split view, I think that makes more sense. But
Yeah, let me
yeah,
try
so you have to
to.
remove the scroll. Yeah,
Yeah, so now it's already
like yeah, there.
looking a lot better here. So I think some simple tweaks there would already make it feel more custom. But then, what will be your approach for putting it on the right side? So using an 8 split view is what you said, or?
Yeah, an edge split view, and you have to define the frame. I think that's about it.
Yeah. So
Like
Yeah,
I really so this
I
is
would
an
agree with
API that I
that.
love on the Mac. Edge split view, I wish the iPad gets this because I really see myself using this, and this is one of my NS split view controller is just so much more powerful than a UI split view controller. I hope that they bridge that gap. That's one of my biggest wish lists for this dub.
Yeah, the thing about this is that the convention on a Mac app is that the leading side is navigation, and then
Yeah.
you've got the main view, and then the trailing side is more detailed settings. And so I think Mustafa's quite right that that's not navigation, that side panel. It's much more of a tweaking thing, and so it should be over that side. Exactly, if you've got in Bakery there the sidebar
Yeah.
is navigation, and the settings are over on the other side.
yeah, but
Exactly. This is
but actually 8 split view was one of my struggled with that for so long, and it's still really bad in Bakery because
it is.
like this kind of
It,
stuff. I do stuff wrong as well. It's probably
So
also
you
my
set a
fault.
min frame, but no. So so you set a min frame on that particular column, and there are a lot of things that so in your this is one of the few things you add a collapsible option so that you can collapse the right hand side view. But
Yeah.
that's NS split view controller being really powerful. That's what Xcode and all these things use, right? So I just want them to bring that functionality because I can make a really good Mac app with just a very like NS split view controller equivalent.
I
Because
think Mustafa makes a good point about frames. People who come from writing iPhone apps, they're used to the whole, it takes up the whole screen. And iPad apps, you've got either the whole screen or a set subsection of that screen. But with a Mac app, it could be shrunk to something really tiny, or it could be full screen or whatever. And you've got to allow for that. And there's a frame modifier that allows you to set min width, min height, max width, max height, alignment, and you've basically got to use that on pretty much every subframe, and then you can get your split views and your sidebars and everything to act the way you want. But you do have to set it, unlike on an iPad app or an iPhone app.
So you have to set the max also then, so that you don't want that initial state to be really bloated up.
yeah.
That might
Max width, that would be max
Oh,
width.
sorry.
You wouldn't-
Yeah, you're right.
I've been there, done that.
we all.
Yeah. So, but like for
Of course,
example,
you
that's-
made them the same, so you could make them different. And
No,
much
true,
more
but
useful,
but I wanted to showcase this thing. So if I now drag this to the left, like something very strange happens. Like the rest of my app starts, and now I cannot actually move it back again. So now I have to move it here on this side to actually make it. So I feel that there's some stuff that's super powerful probably about this, but it just doesn't work as I would expect it to in a lot of ways. I would expect if there's a min and a max of 400 to just move, just stay in that position. But yeah, like if there's
well,
any
if you
good
put,
resources.
yes, I agree. I mean, but I would put your min and max on the main view as well.
You don't
And
allow your frame, app size to be much smaller than your views can actually accommodate. So you put your max frame for the whole window as 800 probably. That's, yeah.
well, I like to set the maxes as dot infinity, except for your
Sorry,
subviews like
min,
that setting.
sorry, my bad, min.
Yeah, but it does make sense if you've set the whoa, that's funky now.
That's a feature, that's a feature.
That's a feature, definitely. But if you've set you've actually, by setting the min width and the max width of that sidebar to the same number, you've effectively fixed it in size.
Yeah.
But you haven't fixed it in size, so it's draggable.
And then there's this ideal width, so that's what you give when you want it to be like say 400 and your min is 300, 500. Ideal width is something that you want to play with. Like these things come only into play when you go with macOS on iPad and etc.
You've got to play with that and you've got to play with this set frames wherever you can and just see what works for you, for your particular use case. But you have got to set frames.
I do like how powerful all these settings are. You can actually make so many different emitters with these settings. So, like, I mean, we haven't even gone into either of them. But yeah, I think although there's some stuff that can be improved from the UI front, I think from a functionality point of view, it's like really useful.
The only unfortunate part, it's submitted for a Mac OS specific thing, so that's what is the only downside. Otherwise, it's like a lovely app, a lot of functionality and everything baked into it.
Yeah.
And the only downside is it's not a Mac OS app per se.
Yeah, it wasn't submitted as a project, so we don't honestly know. I mean, does it have an icon? Does it have any menus? Does it have any keyboard shortcuts? Those are the things that I think a Mac app should have.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it has anything but the standard menus there.
No, but I mean, it is a good showcase in that you can have an iOS or an iPad OS app and you can just run it on the Mac and show like, hey, you can come from your existing knowledge and then just use that to slowly make your way into the Mac OS world.
Absolutely, but like as we saw, right, just small tweaks by Jody, and it's that simple to tweak something for the macOS. Like otherwise, you'd be like making an iPad. If your app works on the Mac from an iPad, right, making it a macOS app is just a matter of some patience and some knowing a little bit more about the Mac. And I just reference all of Apple's apps like Xcode, Safari, all these things. They all do navigation, interactions, functionality so differently and so uniquely, but it's weird. Like unique apps also feel macOS. Like Clean My Act by Mac 4, right? It's the most custom app that you'll see, but it just feels so good on the Mac.
Yeah, by making sure that it still follows these conventions of the platform, even though it might look different. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the last project of today. Unless someone filed a PR in the last, no, okay, the last
I have to
hour.
say, I couldn't get this one to run, so I'm curious to know how you go.
It's doing some fetching for me, so while it's doing that, let's see what it says. So what's up is a flexible and customizable dashboard for showing GitHub data. The dashboard is configured to a custom SwiftUI, refreshed every 5 minutes. Panes can be set with different alert levels. So Josh made this for himself about a month ago, and he asked me yesterday, hey, can I actually submit this? Even though it's not something I made just for this. But yeah, I think we just want to show people different approach you can take, so it's all good. I'm trying to understand though what it actually does. So GitHub data for me is quite vague, so I guess it just takes data. So Josh maintains Fastlane, so I can imagine he gets a lot of just PRs and stuff, and he doesn't want to open
A lot of issues and PRs coming in with notifications, I guess. But I have to say, I got a bit of a black mark in my book because it wasn't Swift 5. The project, when I opened the project, it said, would you like to update to Swift 5? And I thought, whoa.
Let's see. It's still indexing for me. Let's see what's going on here.
-1 for dependency.
Yeah, there were a lot of dependencies.
It's Josh, so we can pull his leg. I think he submitted it as a pro ? So a lot of optionals there.
Nice code editor though in that video.
Nice what?
With the syntax colorization and everything.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see it.
He has a custom DSL put in there. So as soon as you click on the share icon, I think it opens it directly in Safari, and that's what he shows us below.
Yeah,
so yeah, it's not. So that's your DSL, is it, for working out which GitHub repositories to use? Okay, so it's getting open issues or open PRs or ones by author. Yeah, okay. I see how it's kind of working now.
So I think it's more customize your dashboard. You put in a query and it just fetches.
Oh, I wonder, was it not working because it needed my GitHub key or something?
Yeah, it needed your personal token. I think he's written it there, yeah. Your secret settings, you just have to add your personal token.
Well, it just crashed on me, so if it needs my GitHub token, it should ask in a rather more nice way than just crashing on me.
Let's see, yeah, I'm trying to get it to open as well.
I had great trouble, and eventually I had to use in Xcode, there's the file menu, once it's update all packages or something, and then it would run for me, but I don't know if updating broke things or whether...
I got it to run, but yeah, I found it's just the access token. Let me just put in my access token. I didn't find it crash per se, I don't...
Yeah, for me it just doesn't do anything. But it might be that.
Oh, it shows up in the Mac menu. It's a Mac menu.
Yeah, so I think I might have too many visible at the time. So let me see if I can.
The notch getting in your way.
Yeah, it's super annoying.
It's the last one. It's the one with the circle and the phone.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. So it's actually quite annoying because we're dealing with it with Vivid and one app of mine as well, where we don't get a callback from the system that your icon is actually not visible, or sometimes we can get it, but it's not consistent. So we just think, oh hey, yeah, you show the menu bar icon, but actually it's hidden because it's all the way on the left. So even here, like I should have enough space now. I'm not sure if you can see the top of my of my menu bar.
You can see it, yeah.
Oh yeah, you two can actually see it. Yeah, but I can see it here on my other computer. So okay, yeah, so it's opening.
And there's an option to put in your secrets, and so this edit is where you This is where we all get access to Geordie's GitHub. The edit, that's where you put in that DSL, the custom DSL with I guess with the telling it what you want.
Let's see. Yeah, because it says here DSL is written by the user in the SwiftUI app, is then built and run. So you would take something like this, or
Yeah, but then
So he said, what did he say? There's two components.
so you choose your dashboard. So you paste in that code with this. So you go into GitHub's search API and you figure out the syntax that they want, and then you just put in those and go organize your
this kind of stuff.
yeah that yes.
That does make it super flexible to use. So that's really nice, of course. And then there's an action, and I guess okay, so you can make your own action. So you can say, okay,
Yeah.
for this one I want to be able
Copy it
to
or-
copy it. For this one I want to probably like
Re-edit,
open
share.
or something, or maybe that's
Oh,
the
that is
default.
nice. Yeah.
So,
So the default is there, but yeah, you can have an extra action on it.
Okay, so reading the steps, you write the DSL in the Swift UI app, then you have to build and run it with the Swift CLI, and then that gets rendered in. Okay, well, I think we just got to go on his movie there. It's
Yeah.
I don't think this is something we can do on the fly here. I mean, there's a lot of effort's gone into this. It's a very polished app. Well, it does a lot of stuff in a very polished way.
So that's
it's not
how you
in
do
a
it. So
state where
he's
you
put
could
it-
actually distribute it to other people because we can't make it work. But it also sounds pretty useful if you're in the position of managing a lot of GitHub repositories.
yeah,
And I like the way you've got this very custom menu bar app that you can set to do different things.
yeah,
That's cool.
because
So he's documented it really well, but if we follow the documentation, you're able to get past that. And the video is really helpful because you can see the exact steps required to, get it to work. But yeah, I think in the app, you have to add your personal access token. That's one thing. So that's the first step to.
And
Enjoy.
it wouldn't run for me. I just crashed out before I got to there. So it may be because I couldn't get the package dependencies to work, and so I updated them perhaps, and then they were not compatible anymore. I don't know, but yeah, for me it was saying upgrade to Swift 5, which was given that we've had Swift 5 now for almost a year. I thought that was a bit.
yeah, I wonder how that can be. I wonder because I saw that the deployment target was 12.1, so maybe which is nice because this Mac is also on 12.1, so I didn't have to change it. But maybe back then it was still quite. It maybe didn't pop up that
So-
error then.
I think the Swift UI conversion is for the targets and not for the app itself.
But if you click that warning that you've got there, Geordie, what does it say?
This one.
Oh, that's a different one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, given that my version didn't work at all, perhaps I should not talk about whether it's Swift 5. Maybe maybe somehow I managed to download a new version.
It's the package dependencies which have that. So it wasn't ML.
Have a look. I have it open here.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff we could go super in depth on, but because it's hard for us to get it to run, I think it would be quite like hypothetical speaking if we're talking about stuff. But I think another clear example of just making something for your own use. I think up until now, Josh only made it for himself for a specific issue, and then it's also good to not worry too much about all this. All right, how does the user use this app the first time? No, it's like I'm making this for myself, so I can just hard code these secrets, right? And I can just make it so that I understand it. And then if you then choose to at some point release it, that's when you have to worry about these things. But I think it's also good sometimes to just make something for you and just don't worry about everything else. Just set it up so that it works for you and that you can use it in your daily life. And and that's also perfectly fine. Like the macOS apps, I think, are perfect for that, and to not have to worry about, okay, how do I publish it to the store, or how do I make my icons polished? No, if it's something that helps you in your world, like yeah, just make that.
Well, it's no
This
excuse
is
for not
one
making
really
polished
good.
icons.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No excuse for not making polished icons. You just use bakery.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I think one big thing that's come into like this is a new thing. Like earlier, making a utility for yourself was like a huge task. But with Swift UI coming into the picture, right, making this small, I probably said like, it's not so small, but it's still small. But such a quick prototype to make it, right? It wouldn't take you so much effort. Imagine doing this in AppKit or in UI kit, right? It takes you so long to get all this functionality out there, but Swift UI just makes it so easy to probably to experiment, to build stuff, and so I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, I think that.
I completely agree, and both talked about make something for yourself. I mean, most Swift users out there are writing for iPad and iPhone, but they use a Mac to do this all the time, and so you can't tell me that there's not Mac utilities that would make their life easier. And particularly with SwiftUI, they have the ability to make those utilities for themselves.
Yeah, and especially if you don't try to go super custom and don't try to do anything crazy, just take what SwiftUI gives you and just make a good functioning macOS app that just sticks to the system guidelines, and yeah, it just makes it very easy in a lot of cases. So usually with the last few days we've chosen some winners. Obviously there's no prizes for this one, but it's always nice to highlight the ones we liked. So maybe we can have a quick look at the 5 different entries, and we can just talk a little bit about what we liked and disliked, or not disliked, what we liked. So the first one was by Zaborch, which was the encrypt decrypt. I really like that it was just a very simple one function utility app that if you with a little bit more polish and a little bit more user guidance, it can actually just be useful for people, and you can just release it. Do you have anything nice to say about this one, both of you? What you liked about it?
Best icon award for sure. Like the icon's really well designed. Overall, like incredibly neat and compact functionality. It's just a little not intuitive. That's it. But otherwise, from an app completeness and from an app development point, it's a very good and nice utility tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's basically a single function app. Just like I just talked about, if you're working on your Mac all day, this is the sort of thing that might be perfect for you. And it wrapped up some Apple code in a very nice interface.
Yeah. Then the next one is by Arnaud, which is the Proof of Countess app, which lets you view these analytic stats for this API. I think we all still know what it was like. What I liked about this one is that it was super useful and complete. With the menu bar there, obviously some tweaks that can be done to the UI, but just a functional app that I would already use now, maybe a few more days of polish, but just a very complete thing, and really shows that you can make something simple but still super valuable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd like some more settings, particularly the ability to turn the menu bar off and on, or to have it only as a menu bar app. Also, one thing that I've noticed, quite a few of these apps, they've set an asset color. And I must say, as a user, I prefer the accent color, not asset color, accent color. I prefer to be able to set my own accent color. Which you can do in system prefs. So I would, my recommendation would be nearly always to stick to the default accent color and let the users decide their own.
Yeah, because the user chose that specific color for a reason, so they want their whole Mac to feel the same way. And then if you
exactly,
you just I want All right. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just really like the app, and the best thing, like one good takeaway from this app, like the most important one is when you're submitting for like say competitions or contests or anything, right? Having that go mingle button just goes a long, long way, making it so easy for us to judge an app. There's like say for example someone not using, so that's a very good decision, and that's a very good thing to do, and like
Yeah.
for anyone ever
Definitely.
like having that's a very key and important part of building an app.
Yeah, and I think it's for any app as well. Like if someone downloads your app that's relying on a lot of
Yeah.
data input, it's always good to have like a test button where you can see what it would look like once you've actually started using it. Sort of a trial version, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of success of tasks was because of I had a demo project, so we could explore the functionality without having to create your own project and tasks in it. So that went a long way. But yeah, it's very thoughtful thinking.
Yeah. Then the next one is the indexator app, which allows you to just drag a folder into the app and see all the files that are in the app, how many there are, and just makes it easy to find like yeah, just structuring your apps. I thought this one was really nice, like super functional app, but looked really good. Had a lot of macOS macOS, I don't know the word for it, but
Feel.
with the keyboard shortcuts and everything. Um,
Yep.
Obviously, some some small stuff that can be improved there as well. But yeah, I really like this one as well. Anything you'd like to
Yeah,
share
I
about it?
agree. It's another of these apps that's sort of single function, but super useful. And yeah, obviously there's things that if it was an app, there's things that I would be adding to it, and but when do we not want to add to our own apps? So yeah, I thought that one was really good.
Yeah, loved Indexator myself as well. Very neat utility app, very easy to get through, and does one job really well.
Yeah, I'd love to see Dion just take this a little bit further and just release it.
Definitely.
Could be a really good. I think she's still like learning development, so I don't think she has any apps on the store. But I think this could definitely be
That's
one to just
awesome.
put out there and just get feedback on, and yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Then we get to our iPad app. iPad converted to macOS app. I'm not sure it actually had a name. What I liked about this one is that it was a very like with all these different settings and toggles, you could actually use this as an app to uh, to debug your emitter view and actually go. I think the Mac is a better environment for tweaking all that stuff and compared to doing it on an iPad if you're doing this stuff a lot of the time for your projects. I'm not sure how often they would use different emitters, but I liked that aspect, and it performed well. You had a lot of different ways to tweak what came out of it, but obviously it started as more of an iPad app, I think, or maybe even started as a playground for iPad, which then transformed to macOS. So that gave it some needed improvement areas, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is a macOS stream, and unfortunately, that really wasn't a macOS app. Certainly, when we got it, it wasn't. So yes, it was a neat idea, and all those settings are very clever, and it's fun to watch them all change. But basically, not a Mac app.
Yeah, but you can see how with a few small tweaks, you could already
Yeah.
make it feel a lot better. So, yeah, maybe experiment a little bit more with that and trying to make it feel more native on the Mac there.
Yep.
And then we have our last
And
what's
what's
up,
up?
which I think is just a very
So
clear example of just making something for yourself and just using SwiftUI to solve your own problems. And you can do that with something very small like the encryptor app or the indexator app in terms of functionality, or you can make it like super custom and over time add more things to it as your workflow changes or as your workflow grows. Um, and then you can see the difference between like making something for yourself or something that other people can use, because there's a lot of steps here that only the developer will be able to do. But I mean, as long as it helps, I think it just really helps Josh in his daily life. So it's a very clear example of the types of apps that are not really possible on iOS because you just don't have that control there. Um, but on macOS you do.
and you don't have the background execution. This is running in his menu bar, presumably all the time, and you don't really have that background execution power in an iPad app. And also, I think this is a great example of SwiftUI because I cannot imagine trying to build that interface in AppKit. That would just be a nightmare. I mean, you could do it, but I just think it would be a nightmare.
It wouldn't be worth it. It'd be more like a full-time thing you'd have to do for like, you cannot do it on the side. And with this, you can just build a SwiftUI app overnight. Networking, everything has become so easy with the same weight and combined there. So it's just so much more easier to build a quick POC, a prototype app, and then go the extra mile and make it feel native for the platform.
Yeah, and obviously there's the DSL stuff here, which we didn't really go into too much, but it's super powerful. Basically allows you to write like these Swift views based on JSON input, I guess in this case, or just the input that gets returned from the API. So that's something that people, if they want to, can go a little bit deeper into, but it's a bit out of scope for us to discuss now. But yeah,
it's a very rich app, but yeah, it's a good reference code base for anyone getting into and trying to learn these things. And Josh, kudos to him for open sourcing this, because there's a lot of work that goes into building something like this, and open sourcing it is a big
step.
Yeah, and it's also kind of extending, as he says, the concept of SwiftUI, which is where the data defines your user interface. In this case, he's got his whole DSL, his whole custom DSL that's defining his functionality for the app. I think that's a very interesting approach. Yeah,
you just have your app be made just from server code, from JSON code.
Yeah.
So since today is Thursday and we have 2 judges today, just like every day, that means we can have 2 winners. So is there anyone that stands out to either of you immediately as they should definitely be one of the winners?
Indexator for me.
Yeah, that would be for me as well. It just felt like most polished app amongst a lot, and everyone had really good apps out there. But Indexator just felt like a very good Mac example. Like I'd use that as an example app for demonstrating macOS apps.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. So let's give a round of applause for Dion if she's still in the chat as well. It's actually her second win of the week. So Dion is on. She didn't submit anything for the accessibility event tomorrow, so maybe she can go 3 out of 5 there. So as a
the
second,
night is young.
Exactly. It's only 12:30 here in Amsterdam. I think she's from the Netherlands as well. So, and I think I would nominate Proof of Countess by Arnout, just because it's an actual functional app that you could also use it already works for this specific use case that you want to do now, and with a few tweaks that could actually just be a functional app as well, like a complete app. Or is there any of the other ones?
I'll agree with that. Yeah, I'll agree with that one because I liked that one because it used the menu bar and it used keyboard shortcuts extensively, and that's a big thing in my book. That's a big thing of making a Mac app a real Mac app.
Yeah, I
absolutely agree.
Perfect. So then we have our second winner, Arnout. So a little round of applause for him as well. And I think with that we've kind of come to the end of the 4th event of the week. So I really want to thank the both of you for taking the time to go through these entries.
Pleasure.
And giving your feedback. I think there's a lot that people who are viewing this can learn from this, and just these little things that you touched upon throughout the hour or so. So thanks so much for that. Sarah, what are you going to be working on for the next 2 months? Is there anything you want to share with people? I know you just.
Unfortunately, I can't. I'm under contract at the moment, so no, it's not something I can share, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I'm working hard.
But in terms of so the macOS by Tutorials book, are you expecting to get a lot of stuff that you have to change over in 2 weeks at WWDC that you'll have to add to the book? Or
oh yes, I'm hoping. I mean, every WWDC since SwiftUI came out, they've given us more tools, and so I'm hoping for a new set of tools. And of course, I'd love a new set of Mac-specific tools. We got Table last year, and and the H and stack view that Mustafa so likes. There's always, with both AppKit and UIKit, you still have to drop back. There's things that SwiftUI doesn't have yet, and I just hope Apple keeps filling in the blanks.
I couldn't agree more with that. What about you, Mustafa? What are you? So I know you're going to WWDC in 2 weeks. Are you going as well,
Yeah.
Sarah? I don't think you are, right?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay, yeah. So obviously you're getting ready for that. Is there anything else you want to share that you're?
Yeah, WWDC is on the top of my mind, and actually, I'm just going to be revamping tasks. Like tasks was mostly first made for the iOS and iPad, and then later to the Mac. So it wasn't the most polished Mac app. Like it's not the Mac app that I'm extremely proud of, but that's something that I want to change. So the WWDC announcements coming in, it's definitely going to be core Swift UI with other tools that are required to make it like near perfect. But I'm going to be rewriting it entirely for the Mac OS, and because there's a lot of potential users love it on the Mac OS, and I feel like I can do a much better job than what it already is. So that's my next big step, and that's why like I've been deep in Mac OS and studying different apps. What is the best design? How to do this? How to do that? And yeah, so that's what my next few months look like.
Nice. Looking forward to it, and do share how that goes, so other people can learn from your journey there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thanks to all the people that entered for today's event. Really appreciate all the time that probably went into it, and hopefully it was useful for you as well. Tomorrow, in the early morning my time, we have our last event, which is the accessibility event. So there's still time for people to submit code there. We've got a few entries already. And the goal for tomorrow is actually to take a sample app, which is super inaccessible. I put a lot of work into making it as inaccessible as possible, and just trying to make it more accessible. And I think it's a really fun way to understand, like, all right, how does an app like work when it's not optimized, and what does it actually mean for people who have to use these accessibility settings. So I thought it's actually quite fun as well. So if you don't think you have anything with accessibility at all, do give it a shot just to see if you can actually crack all these puzzles and try to make it look and work well in all orientations and sizes and stuff. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna end it for today. And thanks so much again to everyone. And
Thank you for organizing all this.
Yeah,
That's
thank you. That must
no
be so
small
hard.
task.
Because I
yeah,
think Jody is just working so much. Like every app that launches, there's a launch after that where Jody has his own app coming out as well.
yeah, I could
I
sometimes
keep
take a little
myself
bit more.
busy.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all fun. I'm really enjoying it as well. It's I mean
Quality
there's
stuff as well.
there's thanks. There's a lot of work that goes into all of this stuff, but it's nice because we have such a nice community. So I think this week also shows that with all the people offering to help out, like the two of you. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
No, always.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much for asking.